his first thing he did was he captured the part of Yerushalayim that was still under Canaanite control by the area called the Yavus, through the Tzinor, whatever that means exactly, the pipe. The pipe may have been a water pipe supplying water to revolving axes, which were in the hands of two statues, one depicted to look like a lame, one was blind, symbolizing Yitzchak and Yaakov. And the idea was that these people claimed to be under the protection of a peace treaty that our ancestors had made with them, but David claimed that this peace treaty had already run out, and therefore it was time to capture it. Okay, he then captured the area which was called Ir David, which David called Ir David because he then built it up in the city by landfill, we said. He built a wall around the outside of the mountain, filled it in with soil, and then he had a flat area to build his city on. That's one way of reading the words. Okay, so the next point was David then saw that he was divinely, divine assistance was helping him, because even the non-Jewish neighboring king called Hiram, who was the king of Tsar, sent to help him with wood and masons and carpenters to build his palace. That's what he said. Okay, Pasuk Yud Gimel is what we're up to. So it's Perek Hey, Pasuk Yud Gimel.
Wasn't he already just figured out that he was finally assisted when he was crowned on the mountain with the...
Correct. But each thing helps more and more. That thing, yes, that's a good point. He already knew that Shmuel had anointed him, and the people anointed him, and
his kingdom.
But the more chizuk you have, we can say, yes, it just happened to me, who said, and maybe it was a mistake. And the more he saw, every new thing that he saw as a sign that God was helping him, he used to strengthen, be mechazik his emunah.
This took us a few months to read, but this is kingdom like many years. Shmuel was many years before that.
Shmuel was about eight years before this. Shmuel had
Long
died.
time.
Okay, Yikach, David took Od Pilagshim, more concubines, Venoshim and wives. Pilagesh is a proper wife, and Nishim a proper wife. How many more? I don't know.
Why is he taking all these concubines and wives?
He's the king.
He's king.
Is he king?
Wouldn't
I
you
don't know.
good?
Don't tell your wife that.
What'd you say?
Wait, Israel,
I would also like to.
Israel, what did you say?
Wouldn't you also take if you were able to?
Okay. We'll talk about that some other time.
Torah says I can, so I don't. But
Yes,
Torah-
I know it.
Yeah, but Torah says surely good.
You're viewing the Torah thing as a chayk. It's like there's a God's rules and we have to go along them, but they're really, I would have made the rules different. I don't actually think they're good for man.
Not true. I think they're great for man. King is.
No, it's talking about you. I wasn't talking about the king.
If I was a king, I would take it.
Oh, if you were a king,
Like if I could.
if the Torah allowed you to do it.
If I was a person that the Torah said that it was good for them, I would do it.
Oh, it doesn't say it's good for the king. It doesn't say anything about the king.
Well, if David did it, it must have been good for him.
Ah, so now you're going circular. Our whole question was, why did David doing something which would seem to be bad? Well, it must be good because David did it. That doesn't help us. So really, why did David do it? Doesn't David appreciate the beauty of having a relationship with one woman and building a relationship with her?
There's sparks that only the
Say
king
that,
can
okay,
own.
right. So if he's bringing that up,
Right.
I know that was the idea we said last week about all the goyim as well and all that, whatever. But these are Jewish women, understand? Jewish women don't have all these sparks.
Yeah,
Why the king doing it? Why doesn't a regular person do it?
Maybe a regular person should have.
Yeah, but we shouldn't. We don't approve. I mean, it's a good time.
Full circle.
Yeah. All right. Let's continue. I don't know the answer, therefore I'm not going to go into it. No idea. Could be he's also a king. He needs a lot of children to help him govern the country. And
Yeah.
No, but he also knows that those children are going to be.
no, you're talking about something else. You're talking about the Aish Shifas Toya. That's a Goysha wife, right? Who we capture in battle. That's a whole different story. These are regular Jewish girls. These are Beis Yaakov girls.
Oh my gosh. I really want to be king.
No? Against Yaakov girls, like, right?
Too funny.
Vayikach David, you don't have to take Beis Yaakov girls. You can if you want. Vayikach David, Pilagshim. David took other concubines. The truth is, we didn't mention concubines before, so it's not so nuanced the text. But it may not mean that. It just means other wives, some of who were concubines, some were regular wives. Mi Yerushalayim, from Yerushalayim, means when he moved. Doesn't mean there were people who originally lived in Yerushalayim because they're Goyim. Doesn't mean that. It means that when he moved his capital to Yerushalayim, from that point on, he had more wives. Acharei bo'o mechevron, after coming from Hebron, he moved his capital to Yerushalayim, had a big palace, had lots of rooms, he had lots of rooms and lots more wives. Vayivoldu od leDavid, and there were born more to David, banim ubanois, sons and daughters. So that's what he wanted. He wanted to have lots of sons and daughters, and the more wives you have, the more sons and daughters you can have. Guess. Ve'ele shemois hayilodim lo, these are the names of those who were born to him, Yerushalayim, in Yerushalayim. Shamua, V'Shavav, V'Natan, Ushlomo. Now the only one you know of is Shlomo. The others you never heard of. I don't think later on. There is a prophet called Nosson, but that's not the same person. This is Nosson, David's son. Shlomo is going to be born much later on in Shmuel base. But he's mentioned here because you put all the children together as one list. V'Yivchar, V'Elishua, V'Nefeg, V'Yafia, V'Elishama, V'Eliyada, V'Eliphelet. You see the word Eli. Eli is like a nice common name. Eli means my God.
Is there a pay in the middle of a list?
Good question. Very good question. Why is there a pay in the middle of the list? Vayishma'u Pelishtim. This is where I would put the pay, right? Yeah. It's a new story, right? To check out in the real Tanach is the right place because we've had mistakes before. Okay. Vayishma'u Pelishtim. The Pelishtim had heard. Again, it doesn't mean the next thing was they heard. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Because all these children are born in the meantime. Ki mashchu as David. That they had anointed David, the Melech, al Yisrael, over Israel. Ya'alu kol Pelishtim, all the Philistines. It's interesting nuance. The Philistines heard, and all the Philistines came, levakesh David, to seek out David. So the text seems to indicate they're not actually in for a war against Israel. It's more David they want. See, it doesn't say they came to do war against Israel. They may need to do war against Israel because that's the only way to get David. But they came, it doesn't even say to fight David. They wanted to search out, levakesh means to seek him. It looks like it had like some personal vendetta against David. It makes sense in the light of the stabbing in the back. We thought you were a friend of ours and you pretended to fight with us and fight on our behalf, to the extent that David even joined their ranks to fight against the Jews. And then when they come back, they find out that David actually is a lover and supporter of Israel, and he actually becomes the king of Israel. So could be they felt betrayed by David's activities.
Didn't hear over the past 7 years that he was the ruler of Judah?
Yes, but that's not such a big thing, because the king of Judah, they understood they were David's family, they were David's tribe. But the rest of the tribes, weren't they the ones who tried to chase you and kill you? And that was your whole argument of the reason why you were on our side, because you got it in for them. And then he becomes a king over all of them. That seems to be what's bothering Philistines. Okay, so they heard that he'd been anointed over Israel, so the Philistines came to seek out David. Vayishma David, and David heard. Vayered el hametzuda. This is a bit of a difficult passage. He went down to the fortress.
Underground fortress.
Why would a fortress be down? Usually fortresses are up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now he lived in Yerushalayim, which itself is on a hill.
Yeah.
Okay, Yerushalayim, right? And there may be fortresses in Yerushalayim, but it's unlikely to go down to one from Ir David.
David is not on the highest point nearby. Like even what's called.
On the contrary, the Seder, but he's not. No. So,
but he didn't go out.
Where would he be going down from? He just happened to be on the Temple Mount. So, like, it's not part of the story. Yeah. If he just happened to be on a higher hill, so he had to go down to the fortress, it's a bit silly, right? There's something part of the story. So the Malbim wants to say it doesn't mean the fortress in Yerushalayim at all. It means a fortress in the Judean desert, which you have to go down to, because it's down in the Dead Sea, which is down. Now it's a fortress because it's much, much higher than the area around, like Masada. Right? If you want to go to Yerushalayim to Masada, you have to go downhill, even though Masada is a fortress. So that would make sense, but it's a bit weird. David, David's scared of the Philistines, so he runs off to Masada. Look, it could be, it doesn't really fit in with the rest of the story. So at the moment, we're just going to leave that as a bit problematic. Go down to the fortress.
What are the Plishtim control right now? Because David retook Israel, correct me if I'm wrong, so the Plishtim back to where they were before?
I guess so. Yes, yes, that's probably taken a while. That probably was already under the rule of Ishbosheth took place. Ishbosheth was in control of all the tribes, and we said what took him 2, 3, 4, 5 years possibly to take control of the whole of Israel because there were Philistines there. So he had to kick them out. Again, all that's not explicit, but that's what it seems. So they've come to attack David, and David's gone down to the fortress. It doesn't say which fortress. Also, it's a bit vague to say it means a fortress in the Judean desert, and it says the fortress. Yeah, that fortress may have been mentioned in the past in the story of Shaul and David's hiding out there. Yes, David has used that fortress in the past, for sure. But to talk about being in Yerushalayim and going down to the fortress means that one is a little bit obscure.
Does it mention other fortresses in the future?
Here we had Mitzudas Tzion here. And Yilkut David, it just had in this chapter, David conquered the Tzion fortress, which is Ir David. Right? So, you understand? It's unlikely the author would say Mitzuda and me, the one we mentioned over there years ago when David was running away from Shaul. He went to the fortress, It
was like talking to God on top of a different mountain and then went down.
Yes, you could say that, I agree, but that's like weird. It doesn't mention he was on the top of some other mountain, and it's completely irrelevant to the story that he was on the top of some other mountain. He stayed in the fortress, or he went to the fortress. I
think the fortress was underneath his castle.
Okay, that's what you think. Okay, so maybe. But then you're inventing a fortress that we didn't know existed, right? Because you want to answer the question. Now that's great.
The catacombs, we know about the catacombs.
You know about them, but they're not mentioned in Tanach, right? All of Tanach expects you to read the story and work it out, not to guess. Oh, maybe they were underground.
They didn't want to give it away.
Okay. Ufelish Dimbo. Let's continue. Ufelish Dimbo. And the Philistines had come. Like ye not chew, but Emek Rephaim. Now this really means they were spread out. Yeah, it doesn't usually mean that, but from the context it would seem to mean that. Natush usually means like a building which is not being looked after. Okay, it's a building which is natush. It's got broken windows and its door doesn't close properly. Right, it's forsaken. That's what natush usually means.
Yeah, abandoned.
But it probably means abandoned, right? Here it probably means abandoned in a different sense. It means they weren't under strict military control. They were just chilling out. That's what it means. Abandoned, you understand? They weren't, ready for army. Because they didn't seem to be so concerned about these Jews and not much the Jews could do to them. They didn't have to be in tight formation, ready to defend themselves. They're just chilling out in Emek Rephaim. Now, Emek Rephaim today, there's a place called Emek Rephaim. Where's Emek Rephaim? That's where they have pop festivals.
What?
Sultan's Pool.
Oh.
That area, that's called Emek Rephaim.
Where's that? What's something?
It's right outside Shartzion.
That's Shayafa.
Shartzion. If you walk outside, if you walk down.
Right.
Yeah.
That's Apes. So there's a street called Emek Rephaim. Now, so obviously whoever gave the names of the streets believes that this is where the Pelishtim were. Okay, so it's again, if David is in Masada, I can understand why the Pelishtim are chilling over here because David's nowhere near, right? But I think it's more likely David's gone down to Ir David because he was praying on some temple mount, let's say, like Yisrael would like to think. He was up there. He came down to the city of David, and the Philistines are spread out in that valley, right? Gone to some pop festival. That's where they're chilling out there, right? In Emek Rephaim. Okay, fine. What happens? Yishal David Bashem. So David asked Hashem, means he asked the Urim Tzuvim Leimai. This is how it went to his question. Ha'ele el Pelishtim. Should I go up? La'alot, let's go up. E'ele, I will go up. Ha'ele, should I go up? El Pelishtim, to the Philistines. Question number one. Question number two. Hasitneim biyadi. will you give them in my hand? Now, it could be again, we said before, and when David's in a hurry, he's okay to ask more than one question at a time. Hashem el David, Hashem answered him, Alei, go up. Means go up and fight them. Ki natan eten et haplishtim yadecha, because I will surely give the Philistines into your hand. Don't be worried, you will win. Okay? Yavai David, so David came, but Baal Piratzim. To Baal Piratzim. Now that seems to be the name of the place given after the story. But today it's called Baal Piratzim. We'll see why it's got that name in a second. Baal, but we'll talk about it in a second. That's the name of the place. By Yakem Sham David struck them there. So they were in Emek Rephaim. This is apparently a part of Emek Rephaim, and that's where David caught the Philistine. What did he do? He struck them. So we're not describing the battle at all. There's no details at all. That's another story. David's reaction to his success in this battle was Paratz Hashem es oivai. God has breached. Paratz means to breach. I just realized that the word's very similar Hebrew and English.
Paratz.
You say pay and base are interchangeable, right? Like Palestinians. Okay? Palestinians can't say a pay. Did you know that?
The other said
They talk about Pepsi Cola.
Palestinians.
Right. They can't say pay. So because pay and base are very, very similar letters. So paratz is to breach. Same word. Breach, paratz. You see that? Anyway, paratz means a breach. You know, there was a kid called Peretz. We talked about him on Shavuos. Peretz, he was one of Yehuda's sons. And he was breached because he breached his way through when his mother was giving birth. His brother stuck out his hand first, and then he pulled his hand back, and he came out. So he's called Peretz because he broke through. Paratz means...
Like Esau?
That was Yehuda's son, that's what I said.
David.
David's ancestor was called Peretz. Okay? So David says here, Paratz Hashem Esau. God has made a breach. So that must have been the way in which he attacked. The enemies were lined up, and then David managed to make a breach through the enemy lines. To Peretz Mayim, like water breaching. Now, what does water breaching means? Tell me, how does water breach? What's the mashal? In the same way that water breaches and
Like a canyon. Like creating
Or like-
a canyon over time.
Like bursting.
bursting. And if it's bursting, then what? What's the what? Yeah, water burst, and then what? What was the breach in the enemy lines that's similar to water?
Or then it keeps getting bigger and bigger like once.
Okay, so I thought it means something like that. It means if you have a wall and there's water makes a hole in it, so the water then gradually makes the hole bigger and it goes all over the place. I think what happened was that David's describing the breach in the enemy lines that they then fled all over. I think that's the idea. Al-Kain Kara Shema Makamahu. That's why they called that place Baal Piratzim, the place of breaches. Piratzim is the plural. So they did the battle in Baal Piratzim, but now you know why, because that was David's way of seeing the breaches in the enemy lines, which is just like a dam wall, right? Would be broken open by the water pushing it down. Something like that. Okay. Vayazvu Sham, and they left there. Azov means to leave, something behind. Es atzabehem. It means they're idols.
The Plishtim idols?
Yes, means every Pelishti came along with his little getchka, right, to kiss before battle or to as his good charm, right, to help him in battle. When they saw, why did they leave him behind? Because they were running so quickly, or they saw it hadn't helped them, so they just left them annoyed and left them behind and ran off.
What was that? That was
Atzaben. Literally, it means when you say modern Hebrew, a person's atzbanim. What does that mean? He's angry, right? Or it means
Sad.
no. Yes, it could mean depressed. It can mean jittery, right? It's really from the word atzabim are nerves. In modern Hebrew, your atzabim are your nerves. So atzabehem might mean the thing that makes them nervous. That means they don't have a positive, loving relationship with their gods. They're just nervous of them.
They fear their God.
They fear their gods, exactly.
Maybe the gods got on their nerves.
That's what it really means. That's the same idea, right? Right? Because they make demands of them, and if they don't do this, this will happen. If they don't do this, will happen. The gods don't really care about them. They want to make any relationship. Maybe that's the reason why we use this word. We actually say it in Tehillim, right? We say in Tehillim, Atzabayim, Kesef, Zav, Yadayim Lehem V'lo Yidaberu. That's in that second chapter of Hallel. We use the word Atzabayim, Kesef v'Zahav. Right? Familiar with that? And it means they're idols. So they left their idols behind, and what David's going to do with their idols? But Yisa'im David v'anashav, and David and his men Yisa'im. Now what does that mean? Yisa'im.
Destroyed.
Well, it would be nice, because you expect them to mean that. Now if it means destroyed, then it would only make sense from the word Masua. Masua means to make a bonfire. You heard of Masua, when they used to go on top of the mountain and they would tell them with Rosh Chodesh. So the Mishnah says, Keitzad Masiyah Masuos. Right? So if you read it like that, it means, and David put them in a bonfire. Okay? But it's not the usual word about Yisrael. Yisrael is from the word Nosai, which is either last week's parasha or next week's parasha, depending on how many days Yom Tov you have. Right? What does Nosai mean? To lift them up. So the simple reading this is David took them and lifted them up. He and his men took them up. How could you do that? The answer is, how can you do it? What did they do with them? Doesn't say they burnt them. You read it as burnt them. It could be. That's one way to read it. The other way is they took them because since the Goyim left them behind in anger or in disgust that their gods had not helped them, so then they lost their status of Avodah Zarah. Means the prohibition of using Avodah Zarah is only up to the point that the Goy who worshipped this Avodah Zarah respects it. If the Goy says, you're worthless, and throws it on the ground, then the Jew's allowed to use it.
Yeah, but what's the point? What are you going to use it for?
Make gold rings out of it. Do you think these were good stuff, gold plated, whatever, right? So David picked them up. Did he use them or not? That'll depend on how you see the story. So again, if the Goyim threw them down in disgust, and David could see that, they'll threw the crosses off, threw them on the ground, right? It wasn't that they were too heavy for them to run away with, okay? Then it would be permitted for David to use them. If they just left them behind in their haste, then David would have to put them in a fire and burn them. Okay, there's a whole sugya in the Gemara exactly how to fit in the story, but that's enough for us. Okay, that's the end of one campaign with the Philistines against King David. Right, you remember this is David's second war. His first battle was to conquer Yerushalayim, and now from Yerushalayim, which is being attacked by the Philistines, he's defending it from this attack. Now you see for Oid Pelishtim. And the Pelishtim continued furthermore. Lo'asif means to do more, Odd again. The Pelishtim do a second attack. La'alot, to come up, because the Philistine area is low down, and Yerushalayim is high. Vayinotshu, and again, they are chilling out. Be'ei Mekrofayim, same place. Yishal David Hashem, David asked Hashem again. Yoy man, God said this time, Loi ta'aleh, this time don't go up. Don't fight. Hasev means Hasev. Come on, look at the roots. Take the hay off. You got Samach Veis. Samach Veis. No, Samach. Samach Veis. Sibuv God means to encircle. I don't want you to attack the Philistines. I want you to encircle them. Go around the other side. I want you to come from behind. Hasev el achareim. Go around to their backs. Achar, behind. Uba'ata lahem, and you shall come towards them. I want you to attack. Mimul b'chaim. Opposite the b'chaim. Now, I have no idea what the word b'chaim. Apparently, it is a mulberry bush. What they are exactly, I don't know, but they're trees on which the silkworm grows. I don't think it's anything to do with the story, right? Because I don't think they produced silk in Eretz Israel till the 1500s, right? Silk was a secret produced in China, right? So, but these happen to be mulberry bushes. Okay, why they important? I don't. The word b'chaim sounds like something to do with crying, right? But I don't know. And that's the name of the bush. So I want you. He says, God says to David, this time I don't want you to attack. Why not? We'll have to understand. This time, don't attack. I want you to go around the other side and attack them from the opposite the mulberry bushes. Vayehi, and it will be kisham acha, when you will hear from the word Shema, eskol, the sound of tze'adah. Tze'adah is, Israelis in the class know that tze'adah means a march. Right? Tze'adah is a march. Tze'adim are footsteps. when you will hear the sound of footsteps or marching, B'Rashei HaBuchaim, at the tops of these trees, you'll hear the sound of marching. Oz, then Techerat. Then you will
Attack.
again, something like that. I mean, I don't really know. I mean, we have the word Techerat when the Jews left Egypt. It says the Jews left, no dog barked at them. Like Techerat. You ever said that as a kid when you were brought up? You saw a dog, they say, L'chol b'nei Yisrael Techerat l'shoynoi, right?
I didn't say that, but I know about the story.
That's what people used to do. That's what we did as kids. We didn't like dogs. From kids don't like dogs, right? So when you see a dog that you think is going to attack you, that's what you say. L'chol b'nei Yisrael kelem l'shoynoi, which is a apostle that says when the Jews left Egypt, none of the dogs barked. So that's the word used, or to attack. So that's what it means. Oz Techerat, then you'll attack. Oh, we must wait. Why at that point? Because then Yotzo Hashem, God has gone out, lefanecha, in front of you. Means God's ready to attack with you, ahead of you, but only at that point. You have to wait till you hear that. L'hakois b'machane, to strike against the camp, Pelishtim of the Philistines. Vayaz David came, and David did thus. Means exactly what he did.
That was the whole message.
Yes, it's a long message. I always wondered how that lit up. But okay, slowly you get the whole message. Vayaz David came. David did like this. Kashet Tzivo Hashem, like God commanded him. He did exactly as he was told. Vayaches Pelishtim, and he struck the Philistines Migeva, from Geva, ad Bayachal Gezer, until you come towards Gezer. Now Gezer doesn't mean a carrot here. So it doesn't mean a carrot. It's the name of a town, and that whole area, Philistine area, was strucken by King David against the Philistines. So, we have to understand what's going on over here. Clearly, God is orchestrating this story, because it wasn't just the Philistines attacked once, they attacked a second time. Okay? And God gave David different instructions each time, which is obviously something to learn from this. Okay? The second time it seems that David was much more successful, because it says, David struck them, not just the Philistines ran away. The first time they ran away and there was lots of breaches in the Philistine land, but those breaches were like water, which is, they just flow and spread all over the place. And they ran off. And then they came back, they regrouped, because they weren't scared of it. They regrouped. You see that even when they came back the second time, they chilled out in Emek Graphaim. They're not so scared of David. David caught them by surprise and they ran off. But they came back. The second time was much, much more successful. David struck them from Geba all the way until you get to Gezer. The Philistines were struck. What?
Give the map.
Yes. Let's find out where Gezer is. Gezer is somewhere on the way to Tel Aviv. Hello. Here's a map. Let's see if we can find Gezer on the map. Is around here. There's Gezer. Gezer, just by the hay. Right, that's Gezer. And David was in Yerushalayim, which is here. So he chased the Philistines all this way. And the Philistines were struck all the way as he. So that's a major success. So why didn't God do that the first time? It looks like the second time is a test, because he says to King David, "I don't want you to attack," even though that would be the natural thing to do. The guys are chilling out there, and you could just attack them and defeat them like you did the first time. No, I don't want you to do that. I want you to go quietly behind the other side, and I want you to wait. Wait until you hear the sound of those footsteps. So it looks like that God is trying to
Test his patience.
bring home, yes, that's one thing, but to show to King David, I'm the one who fights your battles. When you're successful in battle, especially when you're successful miraculously, it's really my footsteps, meaning my angels who are doing the fighting for you. That's why I want you to wait till then. That's one message. That I'm doing this for you. He wanted to teach him that. And he wanted to test King David, very similar to those who can remember how he tested King Shaul. Remember how Shaul was tested. Shaul was facing the Philistines, and the Philistines had a huge army, and Shaul had a small army. And his army was getting smaller and smaller and smaller because the soldiers were
leaving.
They were scared. And he'd been told to wait by the prophet until I appear. The prophet says, until I appear, don't want you to start the battle. Don't bring any sacrifice, don't start the battle. And he got more and more and more nervous, and he knew he can't fight without bringing the sacrifices, and he didn't wait as he was supposed to.
Such a bigger test than this, though.
Okay.
It's so much more.
Well, I don't know. We don't know about the numbers. I don't know exactly, but
Yeah, but
right?
they weren't attacking. Like the Plishtim were like I'm messing around with Shaul.
Okay, all right. It reminds me of that test, right? You know, that David is now being told that God says, don't go out, even though you have opportunity to attack them, don't go out until you hear, and then we're going to attack them. That's what it says. David did as God told him. So the question is, why didn't God tell this to him the first time?
Right, why did he even do the first?
What's the point of the first battle? Just tell David, don't attack, go around the back. They're in the Philistines are in the. It's not a repeat battle with different instructions. And the major messages which God wants David to get: A, that I'm the one who's helping you. B, that you have to trust me, that you can wait till I tell you to go. Right? He could have got the first time. So I think I think this is my take. I don't know if I saw it anywhere. Is that the first time David failed slightly in his desire for protection. As soon as he heard the first times were there, what did he do? He went to the fortress. God said, that's where you get your protection from your fortress. You should go to the Shiur. Go to the base of Medrash, start saying to heal him. That's what you're supposed to do when you attack, not the fortress. And that's why it says, Vayered, he went down. Because it was a Madrega, he was going down in Madrega, and God says, look, if you want to fight, you can fight, and you'll win. Yes, you'll win, but not miraculously. You'll win, and the first time you'll run away, right? But if you really want to put your trust in me, so I'll give you a second chance. So the second chance, it doesn't say, he heard the Philistine came back, so he went down to the fortress. No, he didn't do that second time, because he learnt that HaKadosh Baruch was going to save him, and therefore he doesn't really need the fortress. He's got his trained soldiers, he's got his thing, but he doesn't need the protection of the fortress.
Shem also said, don't go up, low Tala. When he asked the second time.
Yeah, what's the He said not to fight, that's what it means.
Right, but you could also say, don't go up. Like, if he stayed in Yerushalayim, he wouldn't be going up, he would be going down. Toward, like physically going down towards the microphone.
So what does Lo Ta'aleh mean?
Don't go to the fortress, potentially.
But why is that called Ta'aleh? It's obviously before he went down to the fortress.
Right, meaning don't go up. Meaning if you go to the fortress, you'll have to go up. Whatever, it's a stretch.
No, but Lo Ta'aleh means to go out to battle.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why I think the second time God was given the chance because he put more faith in God, and God says, now you're showing your trust, now I'll give you a test if you can. That means because he's not going down to the fortress and putting his faith in the fortress, God will give him a test to see how far he can push him in his faith of trusting in God's success in the battle. Okay, Perek Vav, Vayosef oiv David. And David continued. What did he do? It's called Bachur Yisrael, all the young men of Israel, 30,000. It doesn't say what he did with them. Just by Yosef. Yosef means to continue, which is what it usually means. Or does it mean to gather? If it means to, if you see, the verb is missed out in the sentence. There's no verb. Yosef, oy David, eskol bachor. What do you do with them? It should say he gathered them, but then gathered should have an aleph for the word asaf. Maybe you have to read this word as it means both. It means he continued and he gathered, and somehow the aleph's fallen out. But that's what he did. 30,000 young men. What for? This time it's not for war. No war. Vayakam, and he got up. Vayelech David, and David went. V'chol ha'am ashe'ita, all the people were with him. So I suppose it's at least the 30,000 young men who he brought. Right? It sounds like more people joined once there was this big march of David and his men. Miba'alei Yehuda, from V'chol ha'am ashe'ita miba'alei, from the men of Yehuda, because they were the locals who saw this march and they joined. Lehalot misham, to take from there et Aron ha'elokim, the ark of God.
They're bringing it to Yerushalayim.
They're going to bring the ark from its resting place at the moment in the tribe of Yehuda and bring it to Yerushalayim. Ashanikra Shem, the name was associated with ark. Which name? Shem Hashem Tzvakot, the name of God of the hosts, Yoshev Hakruvim Alav, who sits on top of the cherubs. So we've got the ark with the cherubs, and God's name is associated with the ark. And he wants to bring this ark to Yerushalayim. So he's taken these 30,000 people, and they're all marching from Yerushalayim to this place, which is actually near Tel Stone. You heard of Tel Stone? You heard? Neve Tzion? You heard of Neve Tzion? That's a yeshiva. Some guys came today to visit Rosh Yeshiva from Neve Tzion. That's in Tel Stone. Tel Stone is on the Jerusalem highway, right? The first part where it goes like straight, instead of going up and down, first stretch of way straight on the way to Tel Aviv, before it goes down again, that's called Tel Stone. That says in Hebrew, it's called Kiryat Yearim. That is where the ark was. It's got another name called Baal Yehuda, and David wants to bring it to Jerusalem. Why? Because why shouldn't it be in Jerusalem? Jerusalem is now his capital. He's built a palace there with the help of Hiram. Now he wants to build a temple. The first thing to do is to bring the ark to Yerushalayim.
How long has it been there?
How long has it been there? A long time. Since Shmuel was a kid.
Oh,
Right? Because Shmuel, the ark was captured. I mean, a kid. When Shmuel heard the news that Hophni and Pinchas were going to die, he gave that news to Eli. Shortly afterwards, I suppose, it was captured. It was there altogether. It was there
were two
about
of them,
57 years, but it hadn't been there that long yet.
There were
two arks.
two. Yeah.
That's a whole discussion.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Vayarkivu, and Yarkivu means to ride, to give something else a ride. Not when you ride, right? That would be Vayirkavu. Vayarkivu is they put it on something else, something the ark would ride on something. Es Aron Elokim, the ark of God. El Agala Chadasha, to a new wagon. Agala is a wagon. Agala Chadasha is a new wagon. It's a brand new wagon, to put the ark on. Vayisa'uhu. And they, now that doesn't mean they put it in a bonfire, no, God forbid. Vayisa'uhu means they lifted it up. Mi beis Avinadav, from the house of Avinadav. He was a fellow who was looking after the ark for all these years. Asher Bagiva, which was on the hill. Uzzah the Achio. Those are two brothers. One's called Uzzah, one's called Achio. Bnei Avinadav, who were the sons of Avinadav. Nohagim, they are leading. A Nahag, what's a Nahag?
Driver.
The driver. I don't think they were. They may have been driving it, right? But it means they were leading this Wa'es Ha'agala Chadasha, this new wagon. Why stress that it's new? I mean, yes. It doesn't need to say it again. You told me it was a brand new Mercedes. Yeah, fair. Okay, each time you mentioned it was new Mercedes each time. Okay, that's the first nuance which needs dealing with. The second one is those who know the Hebrew grammar will know that this is an impossible way to write this. Right? Look at the word. It says, Noagim es ha'agala chadasha. What should it say?
What is it?
What should it have said? Ha'agala.
Chadash.
No.
It says Hadash.
If you say a new wagon, you can't say ha'agala chadasha. In English you say that. In Hebrew you say ha'agala ha'chadasha. Very good. You have to put hey before both words. If you say ha'agala chadasha, what does that mean?
The wagon is new.
The wagon is new, exactly. What does that mean? The wagon is new. Yes, the wagon is new because it's a new wagon, but that's not the way you say it. So Chazal say that here is hinted the idea, a wagon? Why are you putting an ark on a wagon? Who's supposed to carry the ark?
The
The Levim. That was this week's Parshas Nosai. The ark is not meant to be put on a wagon, it's meant to be carried. So what it's saying is the concept of a wagon is new. Not that it was a new wagon.
Was it allowed?
No,
So why is
because
that?
it was a mistake. Why did David make this mistake? I don't know, but it was a mistake. That's what Chazal say. That's how it says, Ha'agala, it's new to have a wagon. Not it was a new wagon, it might have been a new wagon. I'm sure David brought a brand new wagon for it. That's why the first time it doesn't call it Ha'agala, it just called Agala Chadasha. But it wants to point out that there was something new about this wagon. Besides it being new, the whole concept was new. And it was out of place. And it was wrong. And it was an Aveira. Right? But that was David's first mistake. Let's continue. Vayisa'uhu, and they carried it in the wagon. Mibeis Aminadav, from the house of Aminadav, Hashem Agiva, which was on the hill, Im Aron HaElokim, carrying with the ark of God. Va'achio holech lifnei ha'aron. Achio, he was leading in front, and Uzzah was behind. He didn't say that, but that's what it means. Achio was in front, that was one brother, and Uzzah was behind. David, the whole Beis Yisrael, and David and the whole all Israel. It's interesting. Originally it says 30,000 men. Then it says Chal Ha'am Asher Itai, and now it says Kol Beis Yisrael. It looks like there's more and more people have joined this procession as it travels from Beis Avinadav towards Yerushalayim. And it's interesting because Beis Yisrael is actually a more elitist group than Am. Am usually describes the people from the street, and Beis Yisrael describes more important. Chashuv. Okay. Mesachakim. What are they doing? What's lesachek? They play. They're playing. It's fun. Wow, we're bringing Hashem's ark. It's great. Great. Everyone's in a great mood.
Nice
Okay.
procession.
Nice procession. Lesachek. Lifnei Hashem. In front of Hashem. It means in front of the ark. What were they using for their game? For their play? They're playing. B'chol atzei biroshim. With all types of birosh wood.
Instruments.
Probably instruments made out of this type of wood. Probably, because it continues. Or bekinorot, and with harps. Or benevalim, and with some other type of musical lyre, it's called, right? Nevel bekino, lyre L-Y-R-E. Or betupim, and with drums. Or bemana'anaim, and with things that you shake, right? Probably tambourines, that sort of thing, or whatever. Or betzeltzelim.
Shaker.
A shaker they do in Brazil, right?
Yeah.
Or betzeltzelim, things that ring, letzeltzel, right? A telephone, betzeltzel, right? So they've got all sorts of musical instruments, drums, percussion, what's it called? The word for different types of wind instruments, and the ones that,
brass.
right, all different types of things, okay. And they've got harps and guitars and wow, sounds good, right? And they're all playing. But you see, you have to get confused. In English, you say to play music, right? In Hebrew, you don't say to play music. No, you don't say that word. No. You music, right? You're menagen, right? You don't play lesachek. But they're playing here.
They're dancing around.
Yes, they're playing around. You know, making fun. It's not just an orchestra playing music. It's fun, right? It's a carnival, right? It's a carnival here. Right. Okay. Let's not judge them yet. Great, right?
That's
how can that be a problem? Having a carnival, we're bringing the ark back to Yerushalayim.
I guess it is a bad thing. That's what I was saying.
Vayavayu, and they came at Goren Nachon, to a place called Goren Nachon. Why is it called that? I have no idea. Goren means a granary. Same word, English, Hebrew. Goren, a granary, a place where you keep grain. Nachon means, it means correct, right? Or whatever. Or maybe from the word mechuvan, which means direction. It was like a direction granny. Well, we told you this way to Yerushalayim, that way to Tel Aviv. Okay. But Yishlach Uzzah, and Uzzah sent out, like a shaliach, sent out, El Aron Elokim, to the ark of God. And he got hold of it. Why? Why did he feel he needed to get hold of it? Ki shamtu habakar, because the bakar, that means the cattle that were leading this ark and its wagon, slipped.
Oh, he thought it was going to fall.
He thought it was going to fall. Whoa. You think God can't look after his own ark? You think you need to catch it? That's what he did. So Uzzah went like this to catch the ark from falling because the cattle slipped. Yicharaf Hashem ba'Uzzah, and God was angry with Uzzah. For some reason, Uzzah's now got a hey. You notice? Up till now, Uzzah was spelled with an aleph. Twice he was spelled with an aleph, and now he's got a hey. So I don't know why.
That's usually
because hey is an indication of God's name, right? Like Yosef, God's name. Okay, maybe there's something very spiritual in his actions. But on the other hand, right? Vayakehu Shaul HaMelech, God struck him there. Al Hashal. Now I think Al Hashal means for the mistake. Obviously Uzzah didn't do this on purpose, right?
Mistake
But
of doing
it was a mistake in the sense
He didn't realize it was
that
bad.
he could have had a big Kiddush Hashem after this story. That means people got the impression that the ark needs us. Instead of us needing the ark, you know, those who carried the ark, it was weightless. I mean, only those who carried the ark knew this, that it was weightless. But it was once demonstrated when the Kohanim who carried the ark was stuck on the wrong side of the Jordan. Beginning of the book of Yeshua, right, the Kohanim were carrying the ark, and they put their feet into the Jordan, the river stopped. And the people all crossed over, and then the Jordan continued, and they were on the wrong side of the river. And the ark lifted them up and flew over with them. And that was meant to, you won't find that in the text, so don't look for it. Right? If you read in between the lines in the text, you might discover it. Okay, but that's Chazal. That's what happened. Right? You have to read it through properly, but then you'll see it says it there. That was something which was supposed to be well known. I mean, that story was a well-known story. And the Leviim who carried the ark could testify that it didn't carry. That the ark carried those who carried it. So you think, Uzzah, you've got to catch God's ark to stop it falling?
Well,
so it was going to give.
right now in the first place.
But it can carry itself. It can carry other people. This is God's ark. This is like one of the holiest thing that we have. According to Rabbi Kaplan, this is what gives the Temple Mount its holiness. Because inside the Temple Mount is buried God's ark.
What?
There's no, read it. Ari Kaplan has an article on Jerusalem, a little book on Jerusalem, and he claims that that's where the holiness comes from. There's no temple anymore, but God's lucha, because inside his ark are the tablets that were given to Moshe Rabbeinu in heaven when he went up there in 40 days. And the way he described it is the only thing that was created ex nihilo since the universe was created was those luchas that God gave to Moshe.
So
And where were they? Where did they come from? What, they were sitting in heaven waiting?
They excavated Temple Mount and there was no ark there.
Well, there is.
Totally fine. I'm saying hypothetically.
Hypothetically, then, according to Arya Kaplan, I mean, Kedusha, but it was buried there.
There's a better chance of there not being a one there than there is of being able to excavate it just geopolitically.
Anyway, like you've seen the film of the Raiders of the Lost Ark, and you get. You see, those filmmakers understand this ark. They know the power of this ark. We learnt it in the second chapter of Shmuel HaNavi. How the Philistines wreaked havoc, death, wherever it went. Anyone who didn't treat it with respect. Even the Jews in Beit Shemesh, how many was it? 70,000 of them died in Shmuel HaNavi when the ark came back and they danced around it. And
With the hemorrhoids.
right? Yeah, the hemorrhoids was with the Philistines, right? So this was an ark that you had to. Everyone knew when this ark came out to the battle, the Philistines were terrified of it. This is the Jewish people's holy weapon. This has never been out to battle before. So that could have, that could have strengthened that belief if Uzzah would have just left it alone. God will look after himself, and the cattle will fall on the floor, and the ark will float in the air. But he didn't wait to catch it. So God was annoyed with him, and he died on the spot. Vayakeyu, vayam Hasham, and he died there in Aron HaElokim with the ark of God.
Okay.
Vayichar David, and David was very. Usually translated as angry, but who's God angry with? Uzzah, with God? It just means he was upset. It means angry when you say the word Yichar Af. Like we say in the Shema, V'chara Af Hashem. Af is anger. Chara Af means the anger to burn. Right? It doesn't say the word Af, it just means David was burning. Burning with what? Not burning with anger, burning with disappointment. Right? Upset. This was meant to be this great parade of bringing the ark to its final resting place, and it gets ruined by. So Chazal say it was really David's fault. The first thing was who asked you to put it in a wagon. You should know that God doesn't need your wagons. It's not meant to be like that. It's very nice and modern. It's very sophisticated. What have people carrying it? That's in the desert where we didn't have wagons. No, even the desert they had wagons. We read that yesterday in Parshas Nosai. Oh, we've all read Parshas Nosai, right? But it said that they came along with 12 wagons, and they gave 8 to the tribe of Merari and 4 to the tribe of Gershon, and the tribe of Kahas didn't use wagons. Why? Because they carried the ark. They didn't need. So obviously God thinks that we're supposed to carry the ark. I suppose the idea, because the ark symbolizes a connection with God, it symbolizes the Torah, it's something more personal. It's not just you can't removal company to carry them. That's really the others. You put them in a wagon, it's put on our shoulders. And that was what David's first mistake. The second mistake was making a carnival out of it. This isn't a carnival, this is God's ark. It has to be much more, what's the word? Respectable. There's with revered. Yes, it has to be fun, right? It has to be what Chazal call Gilu Birada. Ibdu Hashem besimcha, but not bischok. This is not a game. Right? It's not a play. It has to be done with a choir, right? With an orchestra. It has to be everyone's in a good mood. Well, Gilu Birada, Chazal said, means be joyous in shaking. That means you have to find a balance between being in happy, good mood, but respectable. Right? We don't sit in the base of marriage with our feet up, drinking beer, because we're supposed to be b'simcha. Once a year, right? We call that Purim. Right, but the usual avodah is with respect. We sing, right? We clap, right? But we're always doing it with a certain amount of, what's the word? Control, classiness, respect. This is the base of medrash. You want to really get, party. You do it in the dining room, and there's flashing lights, right? Simchas Beis Hashem. But that you do in the dining room. In the base of medrash, it's not. You can have Karduna in the base of medrash, right? He's got his guitar, right? The lights are off. That's Gilu Birada. Or have Yisrael will play his guitar, right? But all this Metzaltim and all this, carnival Brazilian stuff, that's not right. So that was the second mistake. And then Uzzah wasn't really David's mistake. Uzzah was God's showing he sort of gave this test and caused the mistake in a sense, and that's good. He wasn't really Uzzah to blame for it, and that's why he's going, hey, because he did have good intentions, but it really ruined the party.
You don't have that kind of simcha at the base of Mikdash?
In the base of Medrash.
Okay. Simcha's base of Shmuel was like, right?
Yeah, for sure. But the question, was it carnival? Or was it like the dancing? No, the question, was it like the dancing on Simchas Torah? Was it like the dancing in the dining room here for Purim night? With smoke and colours and crazy rap music, whatever it's called. They didn't have that type of the music in the base of Mikdash. I imagine the music in the base of Mikdash was more like church music. It's $500,000. They claim that's where the music comes from. It's a whole orchestra. It's not maybe Carlebach, that sort of stuff. Not the stuff they have today. I think, anyway, you'll see. Let's carry. I can prove it because you'll see. Let's carry on the story. So David was upset. David was upset that God had made this breach. The same word, peretz. He made the breach, but Uzzah as a result of what Uzzah did. So they called the name of the place Peretz Uzzah. And to this day, that place where this story happened is called Peretz Uzzah. Why Uzzah? Because Uzzah was the guy who it happened to. Peretz because it was a breach as a result of what Uzzah. Vayira David es Hashem bayamu, and David feared God on that day. You see, David realized there's some lacking in his yira. His simcha's great, was no bounds, but it has to be tempered somewhat, limited. He's not free for all to act like he wants. And he said, he thought to himself, Aish Yavoi Elai Aron Hashem, how can I bring the ark of God to me? He realized he's got to do it differently. There's something wrong about what he did. It wasn't just the Uzzah story. He realized that was just a sign from God's annoyance with it. There's something wrong about the procession. So David didn't want to turn aside the ark of God, Alir David, to the city of David, because he's got to learn how to do it properly. And when you get a message from God, you've got to study the subject and see what we're doing wrong, and then if we learn how to do it right, then we'll start again. Just continue. So no, we're going to bring it all the way, because then it'll keep happening. So what do? I tell you, David turned it Beit into the house of Oved Edom Hagiti. A new guy. He was originally been in the house of Avinadav in Kiryat Yarim or Baalei Yehuda, and he had travelled somewhat down the road till Peretz Uzzah, and there, or it was called Goren Nachon, and then he found a guy who would look after the ark until we work out what are we doing wrong? Let's research the subject and work out how we can correct our mistake, and then we will continue the journey. In the meantime, he had to find someone nearby who would look after the ark, and the person who looked after it was a guy called Oved Edom Hagiti. Now, he sounds like a non-Jew,
Yeah.
right? Because he's from Gat, which is already a Philistine town, and it's got something to do with Edom, which is descended from Esau. So it's unlikely a Jew would call himself that name. Oved sounds like he was a slave. So he may have been a slave, a freed slave, possibly, all right, an Edomite Philistine slave who now lived in the land of David, and he took the ark into his house. Interesting. So we'll leave it till tomorrow to find out what happened with the ark in his house. What did it bring? Bracha? Did it bring klala? What did it bring when it came to his house?